Hi, this is Christina Burton, and this is my EDL 850 case study. Section 1, the summary. Mr. Keith Sample has been the principal of St. Regis School, located in a rural area and small town, for the last 3 years. The closest city to St. Regis is 25 miles away. Despite not growing up in the small town of St. Regis, he has worked very hard to earn the respect of all staff and residents. Mr. Sample has established positive relationships with even the most resistant teachers and residents. A recent survey completed after his second year indicated a high rate of support from school staff and local residents. Mr. Sample hopes to utilize this support to help foster the vision he has of bettering the student's education in order to promote the success and well-being of each student. St. Regis School is made up of 420 students with 2 teachers per grade level. The school currently serves students in grades K to 8. High school students attend another high school located in a different city in which students transport by bus to. Continuing with the summary, the school currently operates on a small budget. Financial support outside of state funds comes from 2 fundraisers, a candy and gift wrap sale in the fall and a PTA-sponsored spring fling race and activities event held in the spring. The school budget allows for the purchase of basic materials for teachers, with a small amount allocated for purchasing computers or new software in order to provide the students with more challenging content to better prepare them for their future education and/or careers. The PTA and school staff agreed to use available funds from fundraising to purchase new computers over the last 3 years. As a result, there's now a computer lab available to teacher and student use with 20 computers. One of the PTA's main goals was to purchase new software over the next 2 years. The computer lab and software purchased will help prepare students for future careers and college. And a little bit more summary continuation here. Mrs. Lynn, the library and media specialist, collaborated with teachers and Principal Sample to make a list of software programs that aligned with instructional objectives. Since the school's small size could not support another teacher, Mrs. Lynn also works as the computer lab teacher. Most teachers utilize the computer lab, as this is where the purchased software is kept. Teachers asked Mrs. Lynn to make copies of the newly purchased software to use for independent student use in their own classrooms. It's important to note that there are copyright restrictions that govern the reproduction of copies without permission from the author. Mrs. Lynn first distributed the copies to 2 third-grade teachers, Mrs. Williams, an experienced teacher who has spent her career at St. Regis, and Mrs. Brandon, who spent 3 years at another school. Mrs. Brandon thanked Mrs. Lynn, but explained her concern of copyright violations, which in turn upset Mrs. Lynn, who was just trying to be cost-efficient. Mrs. Brandon spoke with Principal Sample. She made him aware that copies were made of 4 computer software programs for all teachers in grades 2, 3, and 4. Principal Sample spoke with Mrs. Lynn the next day, who didn't seem to understand the severity of the issue when she explained that the PTA president helped her and was pleased. He asked her to collect all copies back and stop from making future copies. Section 2, legal or ethical issues. The author or creator of the software that was being copied could be considered to be the most harmed or affected by Mrs. Lynn's actions, as he or she lost potential profits due to copyright infringement. If unlicensed use of materials could harm the current or future market for the copyright owner's work, then the copyright law has been broken. Copyright law is in place to protect the creator's right to choose to require compensation for the use or copying of their work. The actions of Mrs. Lynn knowingly making copies to save the school money may be resourceful, and she may have had good intentions, but it is breaking copyright law. The school and all teachers involved could be held liable for their use of copied material. The fine for copyright infringement can be up to $250,000 with regards to computer software. Legal and ethical issues continued. Every medium is affected differently by copyright law. In regards to computer software, you can make copies for backup purposes, but you may not network software unless it is licensed to do so. There may be a possible breach of contract should the teacher contract state include a copyright violation section. To violate copyright is not only legally wrong, but it is also ethically wrong. This is not a good example to set for the students of St. Regis School. Students should learn to respect the rights of content creators. Section 3, Synthesize. Principal Sample of the St. Regis School District is facing a legal and ethical dilemma, as his library and media specialists copied and shared computer software used to enhance student learning and academic success with multiple teachers for individual classroom use that was purchased by the school for use in the computer lab. The facts. The people, place, and program involved will all shape the course of action that I will take. So the people and the staff from St. Regis School include the principal, Keith Sample, the school PTA, PTA president Mrs. Evans, who helped make copies as she volunteered that day in the library, Mrs. Lynn, the library media specialist and computer lab teacher who made and distributed copies, Mrs. Williams, third grade teacher who received copies, Mrs. Brandon, third grade teacher who received copies and reported the incident to Principal Sample, second and fourth grade teachers who also received copies. The place, St. Regis, which is a small town located in a rural area 25 miles away from a large city. St. Regis School, which serves grades K to 8, there's currently no high school. And the computer lab, where the purchased software was kept, then copied and distributed. And the program, this is a public school with grades K to 8, again, no high school, and copies were distributed to grades 2 through 4. Section 5, Review and Prioritize. The situation at hand could be very damaging for all stakeholders and the community. The budget the school currently operates on could not afford a large fine. While Mrs. Lynn may think no one could catch the school in the act, she must realize that no matter how small the infringement, the owner of the software is entitled to redress. Furthermore, if the school faced a lawsuit or fine, the community could lose all trust in Principal Sample. He has worked so hard to earn that trust and respect. And lastly, the students have the most at stake. If the school loses funds due to a lawsuit or fine, the school may have to cut back on its investment each year into technological advances, things all students need to support a more challenging and supportive learning environment. Not all relevant stakeholders have been consulted at this point in time. Just as Principal Sample approached Mrs. Lynn in regards to stop making copies, he should also approach all teachers that received copies to ensure they no longer use them and that all copies be recollected to prevent further illegal use. Principal Sample should also speak to the superintendent about meeting with an attorney to make sure he is aware of all liability at this point in order to move forward and make a decision in resolving the matter. He should make sure he has all the facts on the matter of the law. Section 6, Options. The options presented below will take into account the need for informational meetings and trainings for teachers, as well as a section to be included in the teacher handbook in regards to copyrights to avoid any future problems. Option 1. I could let the matter go. I could let Mrs. Lynn continue to make copies and let the teachers use them. I could essentially take the risk of ignoring the violation and hope we don't get caught. Option 2, I could collect all copies and make it clear no future copies are to be made. I will also speak with the superintendent to make him or her aware and ask if legal advice should be pursued. And the intermediate strategies. I will hold a staff meeting in which I educate the staff on copyright laws, as it is clear teachers are unfortunately not aware. This will help prevent future issues. I will also contact the author to see what we can and cannot copy with his or her consent. I also must draft a section about copyrights to be included in teacher handbooks and post copyright policies in each teacher workroom. These handbooks will also be given to PTA members and parent volunteers. Section 7, Evaluate the options. I will evaluate each option to see if they promote the academic success and well-being of each student and staff member. Option 1, the pros. The school saves money if we're not caught. The cons, the school could face a major lawsuit or fine if caught. I could lose the respect and trust I worked so hard to build from the staff and from the community. Option 2, the pros. Collecting all copies and prohibiting future copies from being made prevents further damage from being done. Seeking the superintendent's input makes him aware of the situation and will help to determine if legal advice should be pursued. Cons, Mrs. Lynn and other teachers may be upset. The intermediate strategy pros. They will provide clarity to all teachers to avoid future issues. Also, distributing the handbook to staff and parent volunteers will help communicate about copyright policies. The handbook will also serve as a reference to balance parent support without interference with school operations. There are no cons. Section 8. Choose the best option. The option that will foster student and staff academic success and well-being, as well as follow all school policy and copyright laws outlined in the newly distributed Teacher-Parent-Volunteer Handbook, is Option 2, in addition to the intermediate strategies. Option 2 ensures that no more copies are made and any made will be recollected. It also makes the superintendent aware of the matter to avoid him finding out from someone else. Lastly, this option also allows for the superintendent's input on whether legal advice should be sought at this point. The intermediate strategies will help prevent future problems by addressing and communicating what copyright laws are and mean for all teachers and parents in the newly distributed handbook that includes a section on the matter. Also, by seeking the author's permission, we gain legal consent should he or she allow for copies. Section 9, Plan of Action. The plan of action outlined below includes meeting with teachers individually to promote their collaboration efforts, but to also make them aware of what is and isn't allowed in regards to copyrights. The plan involves communicating with all stakeholders to ensure adherence to all laws and policies. Step 1. Since I've already spoken with Mrs. Lynn, I will need to speak with the other teachers who received copies to let them know why we cannot use them. I will then need to make sure I have all copies back to prevent further illegal use. Step 2. I will notify the superintendent immediately. Since the PTA is probably already aware, given that the president volunteered to help make copies, the superintendent should also be made aware. I will then ask if he or she thinks we should pursue legal advice. Step 3. I will contact the publisher of the computer software to see what we are allowed to copy, if anything. Next, I will have a meeting with all staff, at which point I will also pass out an updated handbook with copyright policy and law info. I will make sure the teachers are aware of copyright law to prevent future issues. I will communicate to the staff that they must use the handbook for guidance to ensure we adhere to all laws. And step 4. I will monitor the teachers by checking in with them over the coming weeks to ensure we are adhering to copyright laws in all aspects of paper and electronic means. Section 9 continued. So what may happen? My hope is that after speaking with the teachers individually in a non-threatening way, they will all understand and realize why we must no longer use the copies. Mrs. Lynn may still be upset, or she could come to the realization after our discussion that this is the right thing to do, both legally and ethically. The intermediate strategies of having a staff meeting to cover the copyright laws and policies outlined in the revised handbook will help future copyright infringements from occurring. After speaking with the superintendent on the matter, if he thinks we should seek legal advice, I will follow what the lawyer suggests and recommends. If it is different than my original plan, then I will use the lawyer's suggestions as my plan B. Here are my references. Thank you.